recent and most informative symposium. And as Carole mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead and claim that. So thank you for that. And in looking at our program's agenda, it is clear to me that this symposium is made excellent, not only by the brilliance and careful planning that have gone into it by the committee, but also by this incredible, notable, and diverse slate of panelists who will be providing their various perspectives and reflections and insights with us today. So thank you to each of our panelists and facilitators. As I thought about the title of our symposium for this year, Life in the Pandemic, Finding a New Normal, I realized that, quite honestly, we all could contribute to the conversation for today, couldn't we? For we have all had to navigate this pandemic personally and professionally. Of course, it hasn't been easy. It's been trying physically and emotionally and mentally. This pandemic has disrupted nearly every aspect of our lives, and sadly, many lives have been lost due to the virus. I don't know if each one of us participating today personally know of someone who passed away due to COVID-19, but I wouldn't be surprised if we all did. I sure do. I personally know several, and quite frankly, I feel like that's too many. Yet, at the same time, we've realized during this year plus just how resilient we are as a people, just how much we are made of in the face of adversity. Like I said, we are resilient, we are adaptable, we are enterprising. We've just seen evidence of this here at the college and in the community and around the world over and over this year. We are creative. We are so much stronger than we imagined we were. We discovered that individually we can truly make a difference, yet we can accomplish so much when we work together. And we know these things, but we've realized these things so clearly during this pandemic. We discovered that we can make an office out of any room and location, haven't we? And we might be doing that right now. And look, we've discovered that we can participate in a video conference anywhere and disguise it if we need to with some of the creative backgrounds I've seen lately. And Carole was mentioning that when I first logged in. And even if we didn't need to disguise or block our background, it has helped to break up the monotony for some meetings to see the creative background. So that's been pretty cool. And among many other things, particularly on the personal side, and to provide some levity of some sort, we've realized that we can binge watch an entire TV series in one day. Look, I just don't have the time during the work week to watch much TV, so I have to watch what I can on the weekend. But I digress. But more importantly, we realize that we can get through this pandemic, and that we will. And I think we all sense and see the light at the end of the tunnel with regard to this, and we're going to get through it. And I know we can and we will. So I think time will tell us as to what our new normal will ultimately be. Maybe we're kind of living, we're certainly living a new normal now. We don't know if this is permanent or temporary, and I'm sure some aspects of it will be permanent, perhaps. But I can tell you that what is not new, but what has always been and will always be, is our can-do spirit and our commitment to providing the highest quality education, training, service, and support to our students and community. And I thank everyone who I work with here at Edgecombe Community College and all of our educational, business, and community partners with whom we depend on to help fulfill our mission. So thank you. So let's honor the memories of those we've lost to COVID-19 through our continued determination, through our spirit of unity and togetherness, through the care and consideration we give for one another's health and well-being, and through doing things like this to contribute to and learn and grow from one another. So thank you all again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the symposium, and please continue to do all you can to stay safe and healthy for yourselves and for one another. Thank you. And thank you again, Carole, and everyone on the committee.
Thank you, Dr. McLeod. It is, we are very blessed here at ECC with the leadership that we've had in place, and all the support that we've gotten from our administrators. So we appreciate that. And so the first panel that we will have, going back to my PowerPoint for just 1 second. That's how I do when I'm doing my classes. I love to do my little PowerPoints, or I love to do my little Google slides. The first one that we have is, it is all about everyday life in the pandemic. I had asked Reverend T.J. Walker to be here, and Reverend Kenny Parker, an ECC trustee, is here. And I see Ms. Viola Harris, an Edgecombe commissioner, here. I see a lot of interesting faces, and so I hope we get to have a really good discussion about this. So I guess I will start it off with asking Reverend Parker, do you have anything that you would, any opening comments you would like to offer?
Yes, I will. And again, thank you, Ms. Mehle and Dr. McLeod and the rest of the committee for allowing me to be a part of this historical moment. And I'm delighted to engage with you again. Yes, I will say this real briefly. I think that as Dr. McLeod has alluded to, the reality that the new normalcy, this pandemic has awakened us to how resilient we are and how innovative we can be, and the challenges that we face and how we can rise to the challenge, not only as individually, but collectively as a community and a nation and the world. Daily activity has changed dramatically for me. The enormous day now involves basic, for the most part, my time is consumed with just interacting with people by means of telephone and a computer. I do get an opportunity to visit some, but limited visitation compared to what prior to the pandemic. But it has also challenged me to rethink, engage people different mindset, knowing that others may not be adjusting and handling the pandemic as I am. And I'm grateful and thankful that I'm able to now find myself being a catalyst, instrumental in helping other people cope. And I think this is the key thing that those of us that I see on this panel, as well as those who are viewing, especially from an education perspective, you're in a key role of influence that you can influence lives that will in turn interact with those other lives when they leave your presence in such a way that they will be able to help others cope. As often is being said during the pandemic, we're all in this thing together. And if we ever been a time we need a synergy, this is it. We need everybody from different walks and perspective to come together as one in the best interest of us all. So this is has brought to light the importance of such. And I'm grateful to be a part of this.
And Ms. Harris, do you have any comments you may wish to share at this time? I'm putting you on the spot, I realize.
Good morning. Yes. After we left in March and we went home to work, I took a suitcase full of work with me to do. But the longer I stayed at home, the more I felt myself drifting off into depression. And that's really the reason that I ended up coming back to work the first week of May in 2020. And I've been here every day since then, because I could tell I'm used to being around people. I'm so used to going visiting people. And then to find out that, I have to make sure that I'm not around senior citizens because I don't want to put them in danger. And that was something I did every single week. It just became, my mind got clouded. My husband and I went into serious prayer, because you really don't know when you're used to being so busy and then suddenly all that stops. Your mind just, it plays games with you. And that's the one thing that I really felt happened to me, and although I've known God a long time and have prayer with him every day, I'm a first lady at a church. No matter who you are, the mind can do serious things to you when there's a sudden change, and especially the change that this pandemic brought on. Staying home every day, Saturdays, you're home every day. There's not enough housework. There is not enough anything to keep you level as you might think. And so I continue to call people, because it's like, if I'm feeling this way, I'm sure there are other people feeling some of this. And so the best way for us both or all to really engage each other, to keep us on a solid panel. And I think that is really the one thing that I've learned from this pandemic, is that no matter what, you have got to stay engaged one way or another to even keep your mind and your heart in place.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. So I know Ms. Harris, you're either above me or down the hall from me. And that's something that's kind of interesting, that, I admit that when I walked in today, I looked toward the bookstore and I said, I probably ought to stop in, but should I? And I'm glad that you're here. You touched on something that I would really like to ask as a question. I'm anxious for people to respond to this. You mentioned something about feeling depression, and I will admit that mine wasn't depression so much as it was anxiety, just fear of being around people. Fear. I admit that when we were told to telework and everything was online, I didn't leave my house. And there are some days when I'm teleworking, even now, I'm just like, I really need to be on campus. So I love my days on campus. But I know I don't come on campus unless my students need me, unless I am supposed to be here. Like today. Today was my on-campus day. And I know the thing that I miss a lot from this pandemic, I'm interested in hearing possibly from my colleagues with this one. I miss the foot traffic in the halls. I miss the noise on the halls. I miss seeing my colleagues. How do y'all feel about that?
I agree with you, Carole. I'm used to, on my floor, having students flow by. Right now, we only have one class, and it's limited to probably 6 students. And those 6 students don't cause the rambunctious noise that I would usually hear. And so that has been difficult. There are some days when it's just me, because my director may be teleworking, and the quiet, just so quiet, so I have to force myself to get up, go downstairs, speak to the few people who are there, just to remain engaged and know that I'm not the only one in the building. But yes, when we've gotten so used to having people just knock on your door to ask questions, now people knock on your door, they have to stand in the hallway. You got to make sure you put your mask on before you even attempt to speak to those people. You got to remember, put your mask on before you can go to the bathroom, because you might run into somebody. So those kind of changes, yes, we keep them right near you. It does make quite a bit of difference, but that is why I force myself to go downstairs where I can actually see another person. I can see Dean Phillips, I can see Miss Green, or if it's Miss Hyman's day, at least I get to interact with somebody else and they get to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, my problem is that this semester I've been teaching at night, and my home base is Rocky Mount. So when I come in, all my suite mates are gone. There is no other faculty really, unless you're teaching at night. And as y'all have been saying, the halls are empty. It's dead quiet. And I started out with 15 face-to-face students in my night class, which is a large class for night. However, many of them voiced a real concern and fear of being in a face-to-face class, and said they elected to take the class because it was the only format and they needed the class, but they were anxious about it. And so what I did is offered a Google Meet, and I have 2 students who still come face-to-face, and I have 13 students who now join us in a Google Meet. So it's lonely, it's really lonely. And I'm a sociologist, right? So my whole thing is human interaction. And that's what I'm all about. I'm an extremely social person. So I'm with you, Ms. Harris. I really found very quickly that I was becoming extremely depressed. And, unfortunately, I've had to find another outlet aside from work, because there's no one at work when I go to work. So, I've had to be creative in other ways.
And
I was just going to speak from our student services division. And am I sounding like Mickey Mouse?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. All right. And we're the blue crew. So we're the, the happy-go-lucky bunch, cutting up, waiting for students to come in so that we can engage. And a lot of our business with students happens intimately in our offices. So when this all started and we had to enact a plan to kind of even have us not be here and be kind of on top of one another, it was kind of surreal in that, how can we as the student services group still develop those relationships with students, knowing that the best way to safeguard them and us was to kind of have us disperse. So it did, it did take a lot trying to wrap your mind around how that was to be done, and how we were going to fare as a group. So I think we're still kind of in a state of awkwardness as it relates to that, because our goal is to make those connections with students at the onset. We're the portal entry, so to speak, to our institution. So we have the opportunity to guide them first, and so to kind of have to scale that back has been really trying. But we find ourselves, of course, on the phone more, and of course we're doing a lot of things electronically, but it just is not the same with having that that one-on-one, that face-to-face interaction with people coming in all the time and kind of landing at student services first, even if they're, you know, they're here with us and we have to direct them elsewhere. Generally, those initial interactions happen in our area. So I can't, you know, speak to how the emotions of everybody that I work with. I'm sure that they've kind of been on a wave, but just for me, you know, I'm the one that comes in and I'm loud in the mornings. You know, I'm already on 10 when I come in the door. And so now when I come in, I'm just kind of a little more reserved because I can't just go and pop in one of the counselor's offices or somebody in financial aid and just kind of hang out a little bit. So it's just different. You know, there's a lot of words that we can spew out for how this pandemic has affected us all. But for me, just the challenges of every day being different has taken a lot of getting used to. And I don't know what normal even looks like coming back out of this. I mean, I know what I felt normal was before all of this started, but I just don't know that we'll find ourselves interacting the exact same way we did pre-pandemic. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how we maneuver out of this whole global change.
I saw too that we had a student, Miss Sharon Easton, raise her hand. Miss Easton, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? She might want to be talking to me because she's my student and I'm so glad she's here.
Hey,
so,
Carole.
Yes.
This is Miss Kennan on the Tarboro campus.
Hey, Miss Kennan.
Hey. No, I was thinking about the GED portion of the classes. Our students have to come in for orientation, and that was very, very uncomfortable for me to have people I don't know from Adam to come in off the street to be tested. Some would forget their mask, some would bring a mask. I keep a drawer full of masks, hand sanitizer, everything they need, I got them. Then I had to take their temperature. I mean, I'm nursing over here on one side, I'm doing this on educating on the other side. So that was sort of strange for me, you know. And a lot of people I had talked to, the instructors that were no longer working here, they were how would I say, scared to come back. They don't want to be around people anymore because they don't know. These people are coming in for the GED testing or, you know, to get in the program, and we don't know where they're coming from. They could have been out last night with a group of people and had the virus on, you know, and coming into us, and we didn't know. And that's still the same thing as of today. When we have students coming in testing, the first thing we want to do is get their temperature, make sure everybody's, you know, sanitize your hands and everything. When they leave, clean the tables off and everything. And that was very disheartening for me too. And especially if you got an underlying disease, underlying ailment or illness or whatever, high blood pressure being one. But it was sort of scary, but I love still having students to talk to and try to encourage to get into the program and get their GED and take the test and everything. And then when you find out after they left or they have been here before, they forgot to tell me they had the virus until you start holding conversation. Oh yeah, I had that virus. It was something, girl. I said, when did you have, you know, I'm freezing then. When did you have it? Oh, it was about a month or so ago. Okay, my heart goes back to beating then. So you get all this stuff, you know, but as our biologist said, you pray and thank the Lord I got the shots and everything, but you still got that in the back of your mind. Somebody come in here and give you something you don't want.
And that brings to mind a couple of questions. I know a lot of my students, they have a lot going on. They're essential workers, and we have a lot of CNAs who are wanting to get into nursing school, and we have a lot of, you know, I get a lot of medical health allied health students in my classes, and it's really kind of fascinating to see, just to hear from them. It's not only that they are afraid of what they're going to get, but it's also that they're being worked ragged. They're trying to balance all of these different things. They're trying to balance school. They're trying to balance, their kids. And it's a challenge, I think, to not only for the students. I try to remember, that's why we're here. That we're here. The students are. I look at it sometimes as the students are my customers. They're my clients. They're who I need to be serving. But I know there are things that that we as faculty, that we as staff, are maybe we've got a fear, we've got that anxiety. I think of my friend Rick Basel, who's I think, Katie, it's okay to say it, isn't it? I think everybody knows. Rick is fighting cancer. So I know I would have been like, Katie, what are you doing here? If I had seen her here. And Miss Francine Long, I know her husband has a compromised immune system as well. So I mean, I know there are a lot of underlying conditions, a lot of things, and like we've said, I don't think I ever really stopped. I did stop and think to a point, where are our students coming from? But I never thought, what are they bringing with them? What how I might be coming in contact with just one student or one person, and that one person can impact everything. I have to think, every person I come in contact with, I'm coming in contact with every person they've been in contact with. So it can be sort of a frightening thing. And I know it sounds like we're saying really bad things about the students, but what have we seen from our students? What have we seen? I know they've got a lot of barriers. They have a lot of fears as well. What are some of the things that they've been saying?
My students cry. I've had one student, he's just so frustrated, and I've had students. I've had students that are they're nurses, and the statistics class, a lot of my students they're nurses, and they're very busy, and they're trying to get stuff done, and I work with them as much as I can, but it's hard. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just had a student come in the bookstore the other day who's in a nursing program. Something I thought she should have had at the beginning of the semester. Find out why she didn't have it is because she had COVID. So I was like, where are my gloves? I haven't been putting my gloves on when I waited on her. And so we got her squared away. But it's like when she left, it's like, where is that spray? I need to clean the counter. I need to clean the desk. All of those kind of things. And it's like, I guess she's got the same kind of fear. She didn't know me. I didn't know her. Of course, you put your mask on. You don't even think about that one of our students is coming back who's had COVID. But it's like, I could tell in her voice that she felt, she's lost time because of COVID. And now she's got to try to catch up. And that's when my mind started to ease, stop thinking about yourself. This young woman is trying to become a nurse, which we need more of. And all of a sudden she's behind the 8 ball because she's fell way behind because of COVID.
Something that I don't think a lot of faculty, may be aware of, I shouldn't make assumptions, but not surprising to me in my classes, sociology classes, we talk about societal issues, right? Including healthcare and the state of our health system, et cetera. And by and large, the vast majority of my students are very averse to getting the vaccine. And that is something that I think our administration should be aware of. And, you know, I don't know if it is proper or our duty or responsibility to promote it. I do not do it in my classroom because, you know, we have debates about these things, but I'm not sure how many faculty or administrative personnel are really aware of the apprehension that is out there among the student population about getting the vaccine. And this includes my older students in my night classes and my younger students coming from the early college population, you know, the high school population. So it's concerning to me.
It's concerning to me that we work with some staff who have refused to get the shot as well. So how do we protect ourselves? We've got to, you know, engage with those staff people, and yet we can't make them get the shot. But it's like, I don't want to not have to stand close to you when I talk to you. I've got to make sure, especially when I know that you have already decided you're not going to take the vaccine. So that you hate to kind of have to work. It's hard to work in that environment as well. You know, you want to protect yourself, but you want to protect others. But then you find out those people working right with you, some of them are not worried about protecting me.
We've had, if I'm allowed to speak for just a minute, we have the CNA 1, CNA 2 classes, and just recently I had an instructor who started out with her class, and the students were just not going to get the vaccine, and through the instructor has had both of hers, and so she was sharing with them, you know, it's okay, the positive education. And the more that she was able to just kind of subtly give that information, by the time they finished the class, she had several who had made appointments to get the vaccine. And I think some of it is for us to be positive, especially if we've had it and we're here to talk about it, we survived it and we're okay, that there is some apprehension. Students have that apprehension, but the more that we can, as their role models, their teachers, their leaders, provide that education, I think that helps as well. I go into the first day of class for a lot of the classes, even though I'm not teaching them, and I sometimes, I try to mention, you know, vaccines are available now. Every time they do an update on who was eligible, I would let them know. And I walked into one class and someone said, well, how do I get it? Well, we immediately I pulled up multiple locations to show them how to schedule their own appointment. So I think part of it is just easing that concern with students and being available to answer those questions. And if y'all have students who have questions and are trying to find locations, have them reach out to me. I'll try to help them find a place also.
That's really good to know. One of the things that I have noticed too, and again, the nature of, you know, what I teach sort of lends itself to these discussions, but there's a lot of historical trauma among minorities regarding government offered aid in terms of healthcare. You know, they bring up, for example, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and things like that as just one example, and there's many. And so these are the types of things that I hear in my classroom that need to be addressed too. And I'm wondering if Student Support Services has, and I'm new faculty, so I don't know this, forgive me, but I'm wondering if there are counselors who can help these students work through some of these type of issues.
Ms. Basil,
Yeah.
This is Michael Jordan. This is a part of being the COVID tracer for students. Every student that is referred to me is given information about where to test, how to obtain the vaccine, We provide any financial support, CARES Act, HERS Act, whatever we can provide to those students. We try to provide support to those the students' families. We've been very fortunate that as a part of the CARES Act, we received a free, not free isn't the word, we received access to 24/7 mental health care that Dean Phillips coordinates, and that is free to any student or a family member. So there is resources available, and some people take advantage and some people do not. But as a part of the COVID tracing, and Ms. Norville and I spent a lot of time together, we've tried to provide that information to them. Just yesterday, Dean Phillips emailed the students about vaccination sites, and you all need to know this too, that Ms. Barkalow and I, we give Dr. McLeod a weekly report, and in that report, I provide him with, I know he may be as tired of me as I am tired of doing the report, but what we try to provide him is the number of students who tested positive, who is ill. Many times family members are ill. We've not lost a student to COVID, but we've lost family members of students. So we try to provide as much support to those students as possible. I am in personal contact with each of those students. If you, I can tell you every name, every family member, and we just spend a lot of time with those students, and they are appreciative of that. If you have a class, if you are faculty, you had a student in your class who was in the protocol, you received an email from me. You received an email from me when that student was cleared to return. If there were additional issues, if you called me and contacted me, I've shared information with you. So we've had, and I can't even, I can spend the whole hour talking about what we've done and what we're doing, because we're still doing it. This has been a tough semester. But just to let you know, the students have the same fears as the people in our community have. And we're just trying to work with them, you know, and we take it very seriously. There are advantages, if I could say that, if you've had both vaccines or if you've had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, there are advantages if you've been exposed to, you know, and that sort of thing, but it's a daily process. Every day has been different over the last year. So to answer your question, Ms. Basil, yes.
And Mr. Jordan, if I could just add to that, since we have faculty, staff, and students in attendance this morning, one of the most important things you can do is to remind students to read their MyEdge email. And I know sometimes, you know, from a student services perspective, we send out a lot of information, communications, but it is critical and essential information that if students would just log in and access their student email, we send out information ongoing to the student body about mental health support, technology assistance, where in the community they can find COVID vaccine sites. It is at their fingertips if they would just access the information. So if I could personally ask faculty, staff, students that are up here, read your email. The information that you may need is probably readily available to you if you would just take a few minutes a couple of times out of the week and just access your student email.
Thank you, Dean Phillips.
That's simple, honestly.
Yeah, that's really, you know, what I was concerned about, that there was some kind of mental health resource. So that's very good to hear. Thank you.
And I'll also add that we our student emails or from student services goes out to students. But oftentimes the ECC list gets blind copied on that information, just so that you all know what we're communicating out to students. And so we try to do our best to make it short and succinct, so it gets right to the point. But we are putting it out there that we are here for you. These are things that are in place to assist you. But you know, you just have to access it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, just speaking as a faculty member who chooses sometimes, who has a way to have some difficult conversations with teaching a critical thinking class or critical thinking classes. I know I kind of approach it and ask them to really think about that situation. I mean, that's what critical thinking is all about. To address the fears that are there. I'm kind of curious to hear, how are some, I know how our student services folks probably are doing it. I know, you know, how are we kind of bringing up that subject with our students? How are we having those difficult conversations? Or are we?
Well, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I'll just throw this out there really quickly. One of the things that I do sort of as an icebreaker, break the ice, is, you know, I'll make some silly comment about me wearing the mask. Don't I look beautiful this morning? That kind of thing. Don't we all just love wearing these masks? And I generally do it, you know, maybe once a month. How we doing with this, you know, et cetera. And it does promote conversation. So it's just being real about it, you know, just kind of letting the students vent too, because they don't like having to wear the masks and the social distancing and all of that a lot of the time. They understand the reality and the need for it, but they don't like it, as you know, none of us do. So just using a silly icebreaker sometimes helps.
With the mask, my students, I said, okay, anybody have allergies? You don't have to worry about it too much now because you got a mask on. Wear your mask. You don't have to worry about sneezing a lot. So that's how I get them to get comfortable with masks.
So let's shift off campus a little bit, just for a few minutes. What are some things that we as people have learned from this pandemic? What have we seen maybe that surprises us about people?
I'm like Kathleen now. I hate to be monopolize the conversation. I never really believed there were so many, I would say, selfish people. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't feel like wearing a mask. Why should I wear a mask? And I'm thinking, I'm wearing a mask to protect you and myself. I mean, no shoes, no shirt, no service. So why is that mask such a problem when you're trying to protect yourself from getting a disease that'll kill you? That's what I don't, that surprised me the most. I don't care about you. It's all about me. And that's from grown folks on down to children. Most of the time children do it anyway, because that's what, you know, you're supposed to do. It's the grown people that surprise the devil out of me.
The wishful thinking. That's what we call it. And one of the things too that I know I have done with my students, with teaching humanities, the neat thing about humanities is it encompasses everything. I could be talking about art 1 second. I could be talking about, you know, a great poem. I could be talking about cognitive heuristics and cognitive biases the next minute. And that's something that you know, I kind of, that I've really gotten into as the pandemic has gone along. I've gotten to where, you know, I've been able to find examples from outside and talk to people and almost call it a name. Call it the wishful thinking, call it the entitlement schema. There we go for the that we're really seeing those things. What are some of the good things that have come from this life in the pandemic?
One of the good things is that I've realized there are a lot of things I really don't have to have. I can do without. Like going to the beauty shop, having my nails done. That was a requirement every month. Pandemic came, I realized I didn't have to go. I didn't have to actually try to make sure that I said yes to everything somebody asked me. I really learned the word no during this pandemic. And saying no to people was something I rarely did. So that is one thing I realized. I can say no. And there are some things I thought I had to have, I really don't have to have.
I think for me, togetherness, we spend, like for us that are full-time here, 40 hours a week in a building getting our jobs done. And so with the teleworking and students being, and my children being remote, being at home and tuned into them more versus trying to work out their lives around my 40 hours out of a week being away from them. So that's been a positive. The fact that we've had to learn how to connect with each other more on a daily basis. And I've just I had a lot of eye-opening experiences with my kids and being more at home together throughout this pandemic.
Now, students also, don't be afraid to pitch in. We want to hear from y'all too. More good things?
Some things that I've noticed is that because I have to watch my students take their tests, there's a lot of distractions in the house, when they're home taking the test. So it's much better for them to, if they can get a proctored test, because I proctor while I'm watching them. And then there's always somebody comes to the door and the dog's gonna bark, everybody's house. There's a lot of people with dogs. So, that's not a positive thing, but, and they're home and they're comfortable, taking the test and they do okay. But I really think the testing should be on campus or someplace. They need to find a place that's secure to test. And that's something that I've really seen some of my students struggle with.
Dean Wood?
I think another thing is, if you look at historically, we have gone back to a lot of things that were more prevalent in the pre-industrial time period, where people did work out of their homes, doctors' offices, stores, all these things were out of their homes. If you needed things that were not available at the local general store, you ordered them and they came by delivery, maybe not to your house, but so it's very interesting, especially from an education perspective. So many things have shifted to the model, more like the model before the industrial age, and what that will mean as we go into the future, how we can take the positive things out of that, from that earlier time period, and apply the technology we have now. So as Ms. Harris has said and Ms. Basil has said, not having isolation, but also being able to take advantage of some things that we've done. Most of you know that I lost my father, not through COVID, but during the pandemic. And one of the really nice things was during the last hours that we were with him is we all, 2 hours put our phones up, and all of our out-of-state relatives spent those 3 or 4 hours with us and him through technology, all the conversations and all the things. And I would never have thought about that a year and a half ago, to just let people who are away be a part of what's going on here. And as Dr. McLeod said at the beginning, people who can participate in things in ways that they have not been able to in the past, not because we didn't have the technology, but until we were forced into using the technology, we did not see the strengths it could bring forward. And if we can now, as we are not forced to use it, bring the strengths that we have in that, and then pull back in the strengths that we've had to give up over this time too.
Now, I'm kind of curious to hear from everybody else. This is something that I think we have found out, not only about our students, but society in general, that just because I have really great internet doesn't mean all my students do. Or just because, I have an iPad, a laptop, doesn't mean that my students have that. What are some of the barriers that we've seen in society?
In my area, Carole, we definitely have a problem with our internet. In fact, it's been sent up to our state representatives trying to get something straightened out about it. We found out in Edgecombe County, we have like 1,000 students who could not virtually learn because they didn't have internet, they didn't have a computer. And it's like, well, what are we going to do for those 1,000 students? It's just not fair. We even offered iPads to students. I had a student who was in high school, a senior, who really needed a laptop. I reached out to friends to help him get that laptop. But having students be able to sit in your yard because you did have internet, have them sit across the street in a parking lot, it just didn't seem fair that all of those students and parents had to sit in a car and let their children sit in the car and try to do homework because at their home site, they didn't have internet capability. So it has been a struggle. I know in my area of Edgecombe County that I represent, we've really had to push the issue. And thankfully, Edgecombe County schools were able to get hotspots for all of these students to help them out. But it still was a struggle because even with a hotspot, you still had it worked some days it didn't work. Even inside the town of Tarboro where I live, Suddenlink works some days it doesn't work. Some days it's very slow, and some days it might be fast. So it was just inequality in parts of the county for a lot of our students from here and regular public school to be able to stay on task virtually.
And I know that, like I had said with some of my students, they had, they financially, they were not able to not only not have internet, they, if they were lucky enough to have the internet, they had one, they had one laptop for the whole family. And a lot of my students were saying at one point, Miss Mehle, I'm kind of lagging behind because my kids are they're the top priority right now. And it was, I know for me, I took time to really try to work with them and try to get, and there were some times I admit, I told the students, if you've got the device, just come sit outside the school in the parking lot. And I know Dr. McLeod, the article that you were featured in, you mentioned seeing the gentleman with the chair by one of the buildings at Tarboro, and he was using the internet. And I said, it's really kind of fascinating to see that. So it's 11:57. I want to end with or in this session, there are so many more questions that I had that we could say, but I had slated that we would take a break at 12 o'clock so we could go get lunch, or things we forgot at home. I know I'm very fortunate to be sitting here with a sore shoulder today because I got my second COVID vax, and yesterday. And I'm even more thankful that I'm not feeling so bad. But you now that we're starting to see people get vaccinated, we're starting to see kind of maybe a light at the end of the tunnel. What's the first thing you might do that you've missed now that if you know that it's safe to do it?
I love eating at restaurants, and I've only eaten once since the pandemic inside.
So eating at restaurants.
Go back to church.
There's a whole session about that at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So please come back for that. Anything else?
Road trip. I'm ready to go to Ohio. That's where my daughter lives. I'm sorry, road trip.
Road trips?
Yeah, my daughter lives in Ohio. She's a teacher there, and I want to go visit her. We hadn't seen each other in over a year, except for Zoom, FaceTime.
And I'm guessing, Miss Barnell, that when you get there, you're gonna hug some folks.
Grandbabies, well, they're grown, they're teenagers now, but I'm gonna hug my grandkids and just have some fun with my family. I told somebody, being an only child and your children live far away, so they're planning on coming here, but I want to go there too. I need to get out of get out of Tarboro.
I know I miss hugs. You wouldn't think I do, but I do.
Yep.
And I miss being able to, being able to just give somebody, I never realized how much I give my students an encouraging pat on the back, or just, it's okay, you've got this, just an encouraging pat that I quit doing, that, I'm looking forward in 2 weeks to maybe starting to do that. Anybody else got anything they miss? It's a good way to go out. I'm gonna get my my auctioneer on. Going once, going twice. Well, I've got that it's 12:01. So we, as I had said, the next session will be at 1 o'clock. You don't have to stay here. Global Ed might stay here to, in case somebody logs in or comes in, to let them know the next session starts at 1 o'clock. It is I said it's bad when I'm so happy about things getting going. It is our religious life in the pandemic session. And Ms. Harris, I hope you are planning to be there. Reverend Parker, I hope you're going to be there. We had a few other folks say they were interested in coming. And so I hope that everybody will come back for the 1 o'clock session. And Global Ed out till 1 o'clock.
you.